Hello and welcome to Zelda Speedruns. Today we're pleased to bring you a Link to the Past Randomizer Crossworld Key Sanity match. It is Winners Bracket Round 5, Game 1 between Linlinlin and Andy. And I am joined today on commentary by Allison and Blibberl. And how you doing today? And let me just...
I am
doing good today.
So, yep, I'm doing A-okay.
And hopefully, let me just check to make sure, because I'm doing it a different way, that we are... Yep, there we go. Okay, so I guess Andy's not quite ready, but I'm just going to kind of definitely mute myself and check in with them, and we should be started off shortly, so thank you very much.
Yeah, so hello to everybody. As Nori said, this is the first match of round 5 of the winner's bracket, which is the quarterfinals of the winner's bracket as a whole. I guess quarterfinals of the upper bracket, since that includes the championship round. And we have what should be a really good match today between Linlinlin, who is the highest seed remaining in the winner's bracket of the tournament. Only the number 2 seed Hitsion is still in as well above him. And Andy, who came in at the number 50 seed with a little bit of a rough path in qualifiers, but has had a very, very solid run here. Neither runner dropping a match in the tournament at all at this point.
Yeah, they have both performed really, really well in this tournament so far, and I'm really excited to see both of them go up against each other. I know Andy was very concerned about going into this round against Linlinlin.
Yeah, and I think that's reasonable. Like, for my money, Lin has looked at, like, to me, Lin has looked like the best player in the tournament so far. Once the bracket stage hits, he is. I also lied, he did drop one match to Dazed Cloud in the best of 3 rounds. But other than that, both these runners are coming in completely spotless in their paths. And both just like top tier runners, both in Crosskeys and not in Crosskeys as well, like really excellent runners. Andy, obviously, incredibly well known. Lin, a little bit less well known, but honestly, equally good.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun. I can't wait for this to get started now.
Yeah, me too, because I hate filling time, so I'd love to actually.
Yeah, Andy's taking his sweet time. He's making us wait for it.
I mean, so I think overall, between the two of them, Lin's probably a little bit more of a seasoned Crosskeys runner. Had an okay run last year in the tournament, but forgot about the entrance to Thieves Town and dropped out. Andy had a nice run last year in the tournament, I think making it to top 16 before dropping out. At this point, both runners are guaranteed to be in the top 6, as even though there are 12 people still left in the tournament, there will be 2 more rounds of losers brackets before anyone from down there faces the loser of this overall match, which will be very nice and exciting.
Yeah, with the double elimination, the losers bracket gets a lot more play, and it has been brutal down the losers bracket so far. I've heard it described as a Shark Tank, which from all of the matches that I have seen seems pretty accurate.
I've heard it as a bloodbath, and it's really felt that way. As somebody who dropped myself into the losers bracket in the first round by mirroring during my Aghanim fight.
Oh no, I do remember that one. Oh.
It was a very, very sad day for me. But it's been brutal down there, and Lin, I think, was... Let me actually pull up the bracket here. Lin was actually, I think, the last top 10... I mean, I'm not sure a single top 10 seed besides Lin made it past even the second round of the winner's bracket. It's been...
Oh my goodness, yeah.
Crazy. Yep, by the third round of the winner's bracket, Lin was the highest seed at number 3, and the second highest seed was Top Life at number 18. And everybody else had either been dropped to the loser's bracket or bounced from the tournament entirely by that point. So this has been a little bit of a rough go for a lot of the runners.
Yeah, it just goes to show that the qualifiers, how well you do in those doesn't necessarily mean how you're going to fare in this competition at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of variance in individual seeds. Like, for instance, no, Andy's score was handicapped very, very heavily by a seed where he got nearly last place because he made one particular orphan in the Thieves' Town Big Chest and came back to as the very, very last thing for him in the game. But also there's a lot of difference, I think, in skill between how you play big races and how you play one-on-one races. Because in a big race, you can get a decent seed by playing fairly conservatively and just doing the safe thing repeatedly. Whereas I think there's much more of a metagaming and strategy component to one-on-one to make sure that you understand, hey, not just how am I going to route, but how is my opponent going to route? And consequently,
Yeah, I've seen that a lot.
Adapt.
Yeah, this has been coming out a lot in this tournament so far. In a lot of interviews, runners come in and say, well, the reason that I took this dive or I abandoned this dive and went somewhere else was because I know my opponent is 100% going to clear this because it's available, and I'm taking the chance that I will find progression elsewhere.
Yeah. And I think one way you also might see it in this race in particular is I know Andy's a little bit more aggressive about breaking key logic, specifically around key stealing in places like Hyrule Castle if it's below Aghanim or the Pyramid, or stealing the key in Desert Palace. Lin in general is a little bit more hesitant on that, but if Lin feels like he's the favorite, we might see him actually mimic those plays as a way to sort of defend himself against the play that Andy would be making.
Yeah, this is the kind of thing that I'm hoping to see. I'm hoping to see some big moves from both of them to see who ends up getting the edge.
Yeah, and it looks like Andy's finally managed to sit down, so I'd imagine we're going to get started relatively quickly here. He had an IRL thing that he was dealing with, and so we pushed back a little bit. As much as I expect to have plenty of pug emotes invade our Twitch chat for this race. Although maybe we'll see. Maybe all of his fans will watch his channel and we'll have to deal with all the Lin fanboys coming in. Going by, I'm looking at you.
Now, he does usually go into emote only during his runs because he has such a large number of viewers that they're probably going to flood here.
Yeah, that is definitely true, as I in fact prompted the pug emotes coming. And yes, it is true that Andy did in fact practice his Trinex hover yesterday. He did make it, although it took him, I want to say, 10 minutes to get done. But Lin is also quite a good hoverer, and so even though Andy's probably more prolific in it, is not something I suspect Lin is particularly concerned about.
And off we go.
I'll say,
just finding a compass.
Both runners, we're going to see a little bit of divergence here. Andy likes to make this play to Hyrule Castle really early. Lin is going to take a little bit more of, I guess, the traditional opening by people who are sort of Crosskeys mains, which is coming down here and making this fake flipper play to the Witch's Hut. It has several different advantages, one of which is it knocks an inconvenient exit out of the way right away. The second one is you get to check a lot of prize packs along this route, since he'll be able to hit the green pickles here, and if he doesn't get bombs, he'll probably make a slight divergence after Houlihanning here as well. You also get guaranteed money to be able to Houlihan with. Meanwhile, Andy, so like if the well were here, for instance, which it is not, so Andy is fine, there's the possibility that Andy would have to orphan a chest here by not having bombs, whereas Lin might be playing more safe. But as it turns out, nothing in either of those locations anyway, just the useless drop down and the bottom of Spiral Cave. And Andy is going straight to Sank at this point. And it looks like we have a vanilla Sank, which is a little bit boring for my money. Meanwhile, Lynn is checking this drop down.
I'm not entirely sure I'm familiar enough with the possible locations for Sank, because I've seen a lot of vanilla Sank in Crosskeys, so I'm not sure if it's limited to a certain area.
So all of the drop downs are so there's two different pools that you have to worry about here. There's the drop down pool and there's the normal entrance pool. And so all the basically the way it's shuffled is so that you have to have you're shuffled amongst things that have the same general topography. So if you have a drop down in and an exit out, like for instance Lumberjack Cave, like for instance the Ganon Pyramid, those are shuffled amongst each other. This is also why, for instance, the back of the tavern is always vanilla, because it is the only place in the game that has an upward facing exit and nothing else.
Oh, okay, yes, alright. That makes a lot more sense.
So Andy's gonna come up here after checking Lumberjack, and Lynn here is gonna hit a couple more prize packs here. He's gonna hit this Octorok. He'll probably hit the Archer with the sign as well, yeah. And his goal here is he's trying to pick up bombs before he heads to Vanilla Hyrule Castle, and if he doesn't find it, he probably will just end up deferring on that play for a while. But Lynn does pick it up from the Octorok here, get enough drop, and so he may be heading up to Hyrule Castle, although he also finds a bomb shop, and so that kind of defeats the purpose. Meanwhile, Andy finds bombs, I want to say, in the Tier 2 tree pull? So both having accessible ways to farm bombs. You'll see most people who've played this mode do a lot early on to try to get bombs, since they're the one reliable weapon that you can always be counted on to have logically.
Yeah, for sure. Bombs are very vital early on in these seeds.
I was saying, Andy, especially one of them, because now he gets to go do Hype Cave, and Hype Cave is really, well, okay, that dampened it a little bit. Although the Desert Palace Small Key is really nice. But we had a Big Key to Swamp, a book, an Ice Rod, and the Desert Palace Small Key. Lynn found Hyrule Castle, so he found the front entrance to Hyrule Castle. Looks like our Bush Crab reward is just a full magic, which is also really nice. Lynn gonna sort of follow Andy up here at this point. And he'll see that Lumberjack is dead, which means killing Aghanim, at least for the drop down, is not something we will be worrying about this seed.
Yeah, that's comforting to see.
It's I don't mind when it's Ganon, I just like surety on knowing what Aghanim is. Like, if I know I have to kill him at the start of the seed, sure, whatever. If I know I don't have to kill him, sure, whatever. If it's the well, I kind of want to cry because now I have a 5-minute 50-50 decision to make.
Yeah.
But so far, neither, I guess, of the two, or really the three highest value drop downs. And so those are all going to show up between the Pyramid drop down and Kakariko, between the Well Ganon and Uncle. I know a lot of people generally don't like it when Ganon is vanilla. I actually tend to kind of enjoy that. Again, I think having sort of the surety on this is what something is Lynn's actually going to make a pedestal check here, which is not surprising with the positioning of the book. I'm actually a little more surprised that Andy didn't make this check. But Andy is going to find the well vanilla. But yes, I agree, Incoherent. Vanilla Ganon is actually really nice because you don't have to decide whether you climb or not.
Yeah, where the big climb is only a couple of checks, it's rough having to make that decision if you don't have to go there for the Ganon fight. And
there's about as unhappy as a thing as you can see on the pedestal, as we find Quake there. Unlikely to be required. However, Quake does have a 1 in 3 chance of locking one of two entrances. Either one could be required. In my most recent match, my go mode was finding the entrance of Mire inside of Turtle Rock, and so it wouldn't be unheard of to have to need it. But I would suspect that Lin at this point is figuring that he probably will not need to pull the pedestal. Lin's going to save and quit out of here. And probably head to Sink at this point, unless he wants to go to Cac. Okay, he's going to Link's house, and he's probably going to hit Cac from the bottom. Or he's going to make the play to Eastern Palace. We'll see which one. Or he's going to, well, he's going to do this bomb cave first. We'll see. There's a few different sort of variations here, but this is one of those places that's really hard to just kind of fit into any route, so you'll frequently see that people just kind of do it when they're nearby.
And we're seeing that our 256 crystals today are Desert Palace and Tower of Hera.
Yeah, that's pretty low requirements actually for the 5/6 crystal. As thank you, DJ Guapo, for the raid coming in. But yes, Tagrant, it's even though it is maybe 50-50 that you will actually need Quake to open the entrance, we do not know if we're going to need the entrance. Because the dungeons are shuffled into the main entrance pool as well. And so there does not have to be a dungeon inside of Turtle Rock or Misery Mire. But there is a 55% chance that one of the Turtle Rock or Misery Mire entrances will require Quake. As Lin is going to find the Cane of Samaria here in the bottom of Cac, which is a real nice find.
Yeah, this is good for early equipment that they are finding so far. They got some weapons. Now it's all magic, except for the boomerang. But it's definitely nice to have. These are things that they are usually hunting for. And we see a glove over on Andy's side.
Speaking of nice to have. A glove is a really, really nice early find. It prevents you from having to orphan a lot of different locations that you might otherwise need to do. So, for instance, that rock by Agadum.
Yep, and also the Ice Rod Cave area is always nice to have a glove before you're over there.
I also am curious if we're going to see Lin take this plunge or not. He's probably not going to take the plunge, but that is one of the nastier sort of connectors that you could be required to follow in the game. And he does have a pretty easy way back here with Sanctuary, but instead is opting not to follow Spectacle Rock here, and instead will just head back into Cac itself. But yeah, Cane of Samaria is really nice for a few different reasons. It lets you get over some gaps in Turtle Rock that you might not be able to normally. And my personal thing is it makes dipping Ice Palace a lot better. Kali, so the sound effects are always vanilla. There are these things called MSU packs that players can apply that will sort of change out the background music of the games. A lot of runners tend to run with MSU packs. I know Lin is not, because the thing that he has that runs with MSU packs started randomly crashing on him, and so he stopped using it until he can figure it out, which is why he's using a vanilla instead of the MSU pack. Andy, I think, kind of plays with the different ones. And Lin, finding the third entrance into Hyrule Castle, is just going to say, hey, I got bombs, I'm going to go for this. The other thing worth noting from the items they've picked up is the red boomerang is actually a sneaky powerful item here. Mostly because it's one of the items that allows you, although the Cane of Samaria also is going to allow you to do this in most of the places, but it is one of the items that allows you to do a glitch called Splash Deletion, where you fill up the Ancilla slots on memory, which prevents the splash from spawning when you jump into water. And not spawning the splash actually prevents the water from sending you back to where you jumped in from, and will then, it's sort of an alternate way of doing fake flippers, and enables some really, really nice routes that you can do. So I know Lin will take advantage of these. I'm not as sure about Andy. But I would certainly expect at least Lin to take advantage of that, to combine the Ice Rod Cave area with the check up near Light World Bumper Cave. Unless, of course, he gets spit out of an entrance. But with Sanctuary where it is and with the glove already, not really a lot of concerns around just diving Hyrule Castle here for Lin. As we find powder and some keys, but not really anything super earth-shattering here. And there's some Ice Rod strats for the guard here off of Lin, which I gotta say, that's pretty sick.
Yeah, that was nice to see.
I was saying now Andy's kind of making his play back towards the entrances that Lin checked right at the beginning. But yeah, it does look like Ganon is going to be required, or Agatu is going to be required in this seed, which commentators may think that runners hate, but runners tend to actually like just for the guarantee of knowing what they need to do.
Yeah, they don't have to feel so bad of making that decision to dip any pendant dungeons.
Dan, I do also suspect that Ganon is going to be required in this seed. Call it a hunch.
Yeah, I see them as soon as they have the ability to is check what Mire Entrance and what Turtle Rock are going to require, so that at least Linlinlin, because the pedestal check was done. So getting that information will help know what to do with the pendant dungeons.
Yeah, I'm definitely a big proponent of team don't bother checking medallions, especially for Turtle Rock. But even I would be making an exception in this case. No, Joel Kip has not checked Merchant because he's routing Kakariko from the bottom instead of from the top, and so the Merchant is going to be on his way out rather than on his way in. You know, Andy, I think, is probably going to be making a play to the eastern area here. Or actually, so yeah, he is going to be the first person to employ this. He's going to be making a play to Hobo here, as you can tell from the red boomerang that he has equipped. Or I would guess he's going to make a play to Hobo here. Because this dock here is one of the nice spots that you splash delete at. So he may decide to check this bomb shop, walk out, and immediately go into the water. We'll see. Oh, he's just going to hit the eastern. Coward.
Oh, and there is our bottle vendor paying out big time with the fire rod.
I was saying, this is actually a pretty big deal here. Notably because Andy didn't do that hula hand opening that Lin did, and so he's not going to have that fire rod going in. But this is like a lot of people who are sort of more of Crosskeys mains are people who tend to focus on consistency and reliability, which is why you'll see things like Houlihan. And so while Lin might be able to blast these mini boulders with a fire rod, Andy's going to have to do the slower block push strategies here. And while
I do really enjoy watching the block push strategies on the mini Moldorms.
Oh, I love the slow block push of Doom. However, none of these things are large, but in aggregate, these sorts of time drops do definitely add up over the course of the seed. I mean, even having to go back to CAC to check Bottle Vendor, which is a play that Andy might decide he needs to make if he's running out of plays, is itself like a spend of a minute or so.
And so we got our first bottle over in what was Sahasrala's hut.
Yeah. No, there was also one in the well, I thought, wasn't there, that Lin picked up? Did I miss that? Did I go cross-eyed?
Nope, nope, there was no bottle over on Lin's side.
I saw it. Yeah, that's a really nice item to have, because, again, just not having to orphan things, not having to come back, and so if he were to walk into Sick Kid's house now, he would have the guarantee that he can check the item there. Which especially can be good to know because Sick Kid is one of those relatively rare number of spots, as the stun prizes a fairy today. But Sick Kid is one of those relatively rare number of spots that can actually have the Moon Pearl in the Dark World. And so having that first spot was always really nice, because it always feels terrible to have to bunny walk back to Sick Kid. Especially if you don't know if that Sick Kid has some. Andy is going to jump down the Spectacle Rock connector and is going to get spit out on top of the pyramid here. And will not be able to check the main door, but is rewarded with 300 rupees.
That's nice to have.
Yeah, and similarly, Lynn gets to go to Super Bunny Cave coming through the Death Mountain Ascent and gets the lamp, which is a suggestion for both of these runners in most cases.
Yeah.
But it's still
I doubt either of them actually have problems with the dark rooms.
No, I mean, I tend to care more about having a cheap way to use fire than I do about the dark rooms itself. As Lynn goes into Sphere Zero Eastern Palace, and I do want it on the record that before the seed, Lynn said, if I see Sphere Zero Eastern Palace, I'm going for it. And Lynn is in fact going for it. Which is not particularly surprising, especially given the kind of nasty position that Eastern Palace is in here.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to route that back in later on.
So early Eastern Palace is one of my least favorite entrances to find. I'd say Andy decided that using the ice rod was too cool for him, and so he's picking some alternate strategies to get through escape here. Bomb escape, not really that bad. Really, the cost tends to be more around using your bombs than it does around the time it takes to do bomb strats.
But early on, this seed has been actually fairly nice on bombs. I've been trying a couple of Crosskeys seeds myself the past few days, and most of them have not been generous on bombs at all.
Yeah, there's a couple of the common ways to farm bombs, like get bombs from tree poles, which is a pretty reliable, pretty refarmable way to do it, which is nice. Here. And again, something that both these runners made sure to route into their route their first time through. As Andy does not want the guard to get frozen here. Sadness. But is going to set up his death warp here. I don't even want to pretend it was richly rewarded with a key to Ganon's tower.
And Eastern Palace hasn't been paying out yet.
Yeah, there's a shock.
You see it, you know you have to go in there, and it's just, you don't get anything. You don't get anything from it.
Yeah, although this is one of those rare times this big key chest is actually in logic as well. Since we do know that the lamp itself is reachable.
That is nice, yeah.
But it is all for naught. Andy makes his play to Dark Cross and bails. Lynn going to, I think, check the desert item and desert entrance, and probably will save a quit from there as well. Yep, and there is a big key on Desert Ledge. So that has a couple of different ways that you might be able to get them. Having a glove getting sent to a connector on either one of those two will put that accessible. Meanwhile, you also could find a mirror and get sent to the mire area, or even more rarely, find a mirror and the flute and 2 gloves. As Lynn finds the front of Old Man in probably the least useful place you can find it in the entire game. Well, it's
yeah, that's not nice to see.
That's a pretty bad one.
Yeah, that save and quit I don't think will ever be used.
I'd say Ice Palace is probably the worst. This is actually a pretty interesting back of Old Man, even though Lynn's not going to be able to do anything out of it here. spits you out in the dark shopping mall area, which can be kind of a nasty place to route in. Meanwhile, Andy finds his vanilla dam, and we'll see where Lynn's going to go from here. I would suspect we're going to see the back of Escape. And him going to the right tells me I am probably correct. The fire rod is on the bottle vendor plunder, as the dam has a Thieves' Town big key in the flooded room. So that is both the small key to Thieves' Town and the big key to Thieves' Town found, which is a little scary since it does put blind in logic while continuing to make the big chest completely inaccessible.
Yeah, that's not fun.
Yeah. So meanwhile, the Soundshort play is looking pretty healthy so far, giving you this blind set down here. Then probably going to be making his play to Ice Rock Cave here, as we're probably going to see the first usage of Splash Deletion coming in. Unless Lynn wants to make me look silly. Lynn, why are you like this? Okay, he is doing it. Just wanted to.
Blind's Hut is not paying off today either. Oh my goodness, just a shield and some rupees and a mushroom.
Yep, and I don't think Andy's been to the potion shop yet. So this might be. Oh, and Lynn is going to turn in Magic Bat since he has the powder now. So we'll get our first look at this here. Also worth noting, with the bush crabs being full magic, both these runners can be pretty aggressive in terms of using magic because they have lots of ways to regen it. Although that map of Hyrule Castle is not something you ever get excited to see.
No.
Andy waffling on Eastern Palace, but does ultimately make the right decision to leave, and then immediately comes back because he feels like he made the wrong decision.
Oh, Andy. If only you knew what we knew.
I would say, and so this is probably the easiest way, in my opinion, to set up Splash Deletion. Right here is to throw the Cane of Samaria up there, drop 2 bombs, and detonate it. Basically works from just about any dock setup like that. There's also setups with the red boomerang that you can do, although from that particular spot it's a little tricky because it involves doing a down left throw without jumping into the water. Another thing you'll see from Crosskeys players, by the way, is arcane knowledge of all of the stupid spots in the game that you can find bombs. And
yes.
of, in his Ice Rod Cave play, Lynn picks up Skull Woods. But yeah, one of the reasons I think that the Splash Deletion Discovery and Allow ended up being really, really big for Crosskeys is it made specifically that routing a lot easier, where you can jump from that whirlpool down to the Ice Rod Cave area, and so you take 2 areas that before may have been kind of nasty in isolation, and together end up being a single coherent play that is really nice. The consensus here is that it's 24 minutes into the seed, and it's impossible to determine who's winning or losing. I would probably give the light advantage to Lynn right now.
Yeah, it's always hard to make a call when it comes to who's ahead. It's usually not until like the last half an hour that you see a clear, who has the head.
That's always a scary thing for me when I see that, is both the Dam and Swamp Palace in Sphere Zero.
Oh jeez. That is yeah, that's interesting.
So Lynn here is going to check out this Desert Small key. Lynn probably pretty happy that the Desert Small showed up as early as it did, because it meant he didn't have to think about stealing the key. We'll probably also follow this by... and there's the Moon Pearl.
Getting a Moon Pearl! This has been a very generous seed so far when it comes to items. The only thing that we're really missing for like a good early start is a sword. A sword would be nice to see.
I'd rather see a mirror. Mirror probably the best item in Crosskeys. Although, if you would like to keep calling your shots, by all means, you're on a roll.
Okay, well, next one, hammer. I like hammers.
Well, I guess it's guaranteed that big key will, in fact, lock the hammer.
We already have the fire sources, no need to burn.
But yeah, I mean, the sword is nice for moving around, but the mirror, especially the combination of the mirror and the moon pearl. So for instance, if Lin had gone here, the combination that he would be able to use would be to basically double check the world at the same time as Lin accidentally hits a murder bird shot, but luckily has just enough health to survive it. Bumper Cave, by the way, one of the best entrances to be able to find in the game, since it is both a connector to a very convenient spot. I think Lin is healing here.
Oh yeah.
But also, it is one of those places that has an entrance that you have to mirror to and cannot get to anywhere else. So Lin is going to be, I think, a little bit more aggressive about being able to go through that, as I believe that is the second side of Bumper Cave that we've seen. So that's both ends of that connector taken care of. However, I think you sort of get into a position where if you have the mirror and the moon pearl, and that's why I think Lin's going to make this play where he is right now, is specifically around he's going to a spot where he's already been in the light world, so he's not losing anything by not having the mirror, because he's not losing the possibility of double clearing. I think you'll probably see him be a little bit more greedy around as we find Tower of Hera, which is a beatable dungeon here, with the big key even.
Oh, that is nice. And we have our first castle tower small.
And probably the only one we will care about all seed. There is a tiny possibility that our runners may still have to kill Ganon. There is a slightly larger possibility they'll have to do it logically, although that's pretty remote as well. But more likely than not, they will get the 2 items in Aga Tower and never go back.
Yeah, that's what you like to see.
Tower Hera Big Key was somewhere really early. I think it was in like the well or something. Lumberjack drop down is vanilla, but has a heart piece there, which I actually think is vanilla as well. I have played the rando version of this hundreds of times and the vanilla version of this like twice. So I can tell you all about rando and very little about not rando.
And that's our Big Key of Turtle Rock up in Tower of Hera.
So that is a... Okay, well, so we're very, very close to being able to beat Trinex. If your luck breaks for you with only a fighter sword, you are required to have at least 2 magic bars. Logically, you are required to have 4 magic bars to be able to beat Trinex with a fighter sword. And so that's the only thing holding us up. But it is actually impossible to beat Trinex with 1 magic bar and fighter sword.
Oh my goodness.
I do actually remember Lin had a seed at one point where it was, in fact, logically required to beat Fighter Sword Trinex for the Moon Pearl, which hit every other sword and the hammer, and half magic. So he just had 3 bottles to go for it. It's pretty terrible.
Oh my goodness, no.
As Lin is going to be wrapping up Tower of Hera here. Yeah, I think that was the race Lin won with like a 250 or something, and most good runners are finishing seas at about the 2-hour mark.
And there is our first bow on Moldorm.
So meanwhile, Andy finding Palace of Darkness here. And he does have a single key, and may be willing to mimic clip as well. We also now know that there is a bow that's logically accessible right now. Yeah, but Andy looks like he missed the sword. He just went for the right side and bailed.
Yep, and he's down a sword. He's down a fire rod. No lamp, but that doesn't really matter. And he is down a bow compared to Lin so far.
And I mean, Lin does, I think, have an absolute advantage in the number of items he's found, but I don't think it's... Andy also has advantages over Lin right now. Like, it's not clearly one-directional. Meanwhile, here's the front of Turtle Rock. And Andy finds the flute, which is really nice.
Oh, that is so nice. I mean, half an hour in for a Crosskey seed, getting the flute, this is early. This is still early for a flute.
Oh, it is, but it's most useful right at the start of the game when you're doing all the light world exploring. Having the Moon Pearl in play at least makes it more likely that you're going to be exploring the Dark World. But Andy is setting up for the Mimic Clip, which Lynn will not have to do. For those of you who've never done this lovely bit of tech before, when moving left, the Mimics do not have collision detection on their first frame of movement to the left. Ooh, as Andy has the Mimic slide out of the wall there. And so what ends up happening here is you alternate between a single frame of input to the left, and then you push up or down to sort of lock the Mimic in place. And you can slide the Mimic out of the wall that way, like Andy just did. Which is a pretty nice, healthy Mimic Clip. It's no Jetters who has magic fingers and can do it in like 5 seconds. And there is probably the biggest prize in all of Crosskeys is the mirror. So
yes, that is very much worth getting the taking that dip there.
So that was, it looked like the bottom of desert instead that got him that. Which notably opened at Misery Mire, which means that we are now down to a 1 in 3 chance to Quake even locking any of the entrances. But that's about as nice of a place as you can find that mirror when you're already in Misery Mire that you're in through a connector. Since Andy's going to be able to full clear out the Mire and Desert area now. Lynn, meanwhile, is going to be making the play here to Skullwoods. Trinex is not in Logic yet. He could theoretically kill Trinex, but it would require doing a double Fighter Sword spin on basically every hit. So you need either so Lynn would need another bottle or a sword to put Trinex in Logic here. Or a hammer. I might have spent a lot of time looking at the Key Sanity Logic files because I've been coding a tracker for myself for that actually tracks Key Sanity Logic properly. So,
oh, that is nice.
I may have spent a lot of time going through the Trinex Logic because at one point it was about 60 lines long, and then I just refactored it all into a common function, and now it's like 6 lines long. But and also, yes, Trinex logically does require all 4 small keys in all situations. So the one thing I will say, as nice as the mirror is, and it is very nice, it is going to hurt Andy to not have found that bumper cave connector yet. And in particular, I think he's explored basically everywhere in the light world, which means he doesn't get the advantage of double clearing the front and back, or the light world and dark world at the same time, which is the single best way you can accelerate an advantage with a mirror.
Yeah, that's what you would hope to be able to do, but where he's so far in already with that mirror, it's not much of a time save for him.
I'll say, not that he's going to complain.
Oh no, it definitely helps with routing in general, but when it comes to checking for more items in the same location, it's not that big of an advantage for him.
Lynn's sprite is from Secret of Mana, and it is... I don't remember her name anymore. Pram, there we go. Lynn, unfortunately with no mirror, is going to have to sit here and wait for the Hand of Death to carry him to his fate. Andy now coming back getting the sword. Feels disappointed, shouldn't feel disappointed. Because he is going to get sped on Bumper Cave here, and so this is a place that Andy's going to get a tangible advantage on if Light World Bumper Cave, or as the hints once referred to it, Southwest Death Mountain Foothills Cave.
Oh my god. So, Hills.
Amazing Ampharos, who wrote the entrance randomizer, had some interesting decisions for what he named things. And that is a nice thing to find. We'll see if it has anything to pay off. As we found out, Eastern Palace is a green pendant, so I suspect neither runner will be looking. But yeah, T-Stu is right that Andy did walk right by the graveyard ledge at Dark Shopping Mall. I would say, so Andy does get Sahasrara, but Lynn gets the far higher prize of winning Hotel Mario percent. Thus named because it is a hotel with a bunch of beds, and it looks like Mario. We are very clever with our naming here, I have to say.
Yes, it's I mean, it makes sense. It's not a busy place, but it is a hotel.
I didn't track as well as I should have. I don't think there were any other connectors to the Mire area, right? That it was just desert to the right.
Yeah, I think that's it.
So that might actually be a while before Lynn gets to Pod at this point. Depending on what he feels his options are. Because he definitely has found a lot of connectors that could send him to places like Death Mountain.
Not a prison, more like a hostel.
I think we found the American in chat. Spoiler alert, I'm the American. Ooh, and there's the small key to Swamp Palace, so we're just missing a hammer, hookshot, and flippers, and that dungeon's ready to go.
And over on Andy's side, he is activating his flute.
Yep, Andy's gonna feel real good about that Palace of Darkness find. Although, Lynn is kind of running out of stuff to do that isn't just connector bingo. Although I suspect we might see him make the jump to the Palace of Darkness area from here, using Splash Deletion with the bow.
And there is Ice Palace over on Linlinlin's side.
Almost a tempting play. But I think with only a hammer left to have to be able to clear it, you're maybe going to be a little more patient. Lynn, meanwhile, is going to be able to clear out Aghanim's Tower here.
Yeah, these are a quick couple of checks.
Especially as Lynn is relatively low on health, and so he'll be able to take a pretty quick death warp from the second room. Andy mismarking which one was Magic Bat and which one was Useless Fairy on his tracker, and jumps down with the powder ready, only to be surprised.
Oops.
Lynn, meanwhile, has seen enough of this seed and decides it is time to leave this earthly coil.
And down he goes.
So notably, we have found no connection to Death Mountain yet, which is interesting, although we have seen lots of connectors that easily could be in Death Mountain. I'm interested to see if Lynn's going to save and quit out of this, or is going to try to continue his route.
You got it this time.
Oh, that's
Andy.
true, we do have
You
the
got
flute.
it.
Oh, Lynn is going to go to Ice Palace. I think Lynn's going to make the play to Ice Palace here. Let's see.
A fire rod at the ready, so, yep.
I think he was mostly just checking the nearby entrances to see if he could pull the hammer. That being said, with the King of Samaria, this dip is really not that bad.
No, it's definitely easier being able to pull off the little icebreaker.
Yeah, this used to be probably the worst play Crosskeys could have you make, and now it's just kind of a giant shrug, especially when you have a key already. If you don't have a key, you have to do some convoluted things to make it work. Notably, you kind of drop down, you steal the key from below, die, restart. It's a little interesting. I'm gonna finish off the pen gators here. So the
Yeah,
big
that was a
prize
pretty
here-
nice bomb strat for it too.
Yeah, his bomb strats tend to be very, very smooth. And we will see. The big prize Lin wants to find here would be the hammer. But there are other things that he could find that would be very, very interesting right now. Because Lin is not going to hit the switch. So even if he finds the hammer, that is going to make him in a position where he needs the big key to be able to get out of ice, or to be able to kill Cold Stare. But I don't think he's really making this play because he thinks he's going to kill Cold Stare out of it. I think he's making this play just to get the item checks out of the way.
Yeah, just get that dip in. And I picked up another small key to Ganon's tower while in Ice Palace.
Yep. And that one, on the other hand, is locked by the hammer. So that does restrict pretty greatly where that hammer can be in Ganon's tower, because a lot of checks in Ganon's tower are locked by 4 small keys. Notably, Validation Chest is locked by 4 small keys, anything below Aga 2, which obviously in the seed is irrelevant, and Compass Room is also locked by 4 small keys, so none of those locations will have the hammer today. The reason that fast menuing is allowed in Crosskeys by default is because fast menuing makes the game significantly more enjoyable to play, and it's silly that it's not in normal race settings. To hear the full campaign, contact Tiefplan on Discord. And Ice Palace is in fact nothing. So Lin's not going to feel great about that play, but isn't going to feel too bad. I suspect he won't feel too bad about the seed until he makes the play to Desert Palace again.
Now, I will say that Quick Swap does have its faults when it comes to landing on the wrong item, say in the middle of a boss battle, and accidentally activating that.
That is your own fault.
Oh.
If someone were to hypothetically use the mirror in the middle of a boss battle, that is the fault of the person who does it.
Oh, okay.
As Lin is now going to see this dam and start getting a little bit suspicious. But obviously has no flippers to follow up on any of those suspicions. That being said, if he does find the flippers, which I think we're pretty convinced are going to have to be through either on Death Mountain or through one of these connectors at this point, because I don't think there's much else that could be there.
Yeah, there's not much left.
Yeah, and we don't even have a hammer or hookshot to get to the other side of Death Mountain. Although I would suspect that, as we get our first look, and Swamp Palace is a pendant, which is pretty notable.
That's mildly comforting.
I mean, Swamp and Ice are my 2 favorite dungeons in the game now, so I'm never happy to see a pendant Swamp.
Oh. Now, ever since Diver Down and Icebreaker, it is much more friendly.
So actually, to answer that question, Mitch, we have found a way to splash sleet in Swamp Palace, and it does get you in the water. The problem is getting out of the water. As Andy here is going to take a connector that will drop him in Darkside Village of Outcasts. I think Lin right now is reduced to connector bingo. So we'll see which ones. That's not true. He could also make the play to Eastern Palace and do the shovel. We'll see which ones he decides to do. He's turning into mushroom. Okay. And yeah, there would have to be some pretty breaking techniques to be able to use Diver Down or to use Splash Deletion in Swamp Palace to skip the flippers. That would certainly be something that pretty much turns random routing on its head, because it would make the flippers basically nothing but a nice to have item. Assuming that you have any of the items that you Splash Delete, but there are a good number of them. Notably the Red Boomerang, the Cane of Samaria, the Ice Rod, the Bow, and the Cane of Burna to a lesser extent can all help you Splash Delete. I mean, Swamp Palace has 10 items. It's a fast dungeon. It routes nicely with Diver Down. Like, it's a good dungeon. I believe Hera was just in the Dark Sanctuary.
And we're getting a look at Big Spot for a big 20 today.
Or a big whoop. Who cares?
Someday, the big red will be the difference between a win or a loss. I'm holding out hope.
Lynn gonna walk through Hyrule Castle. I don't think he's seen the... Oh yeah, so Lynn skipped out on Dark Cross, so he's gonna check that now.
And Andy's just taking a little dip here into a laser bridge.
Yeah, and I would hope to see him follow this up. I really dislike going top down on Laser Bridge, because in this route he should be ending himself with Crystal Roller Room, so now he's going to have to do a double, he's going to have to climb back up through this.
Laser Bridge was worthless today. Completely worthless.
So Crystal Roller being sort of one of the more interesting chests, I think, in... not that it really is going to matter with what we've seen, with like what we have today. But Crystal Roller is one of those chests in this game that has two very, very different paths, to put it in logic. One of which involves the Cane of Samaria, the lamp, and access to Laser Bridge, and the other one involves the middle of Turtle Rock and the Turtle Rock Big Key. And so finding any of those items specifically there, which I have found all of those items there at different seeds, tells you a lot about the logic of the seed. And Lynn finds the back of Desert Palace in Dark Death Mountain here, which I think was just on the other end of Hyrule Castle. So that's an interesting connector, and will get us to East Death Mountain.
So all we're missing...
found a connector to.
All we're missing right now in finding of dungeons is Thieves Town, Misrimar, and GT.
Yes, Aga 1 is not logically dead here in Coherent, although Aga 1 is very, very much dead for both of these runners, since they both will know techniques to get over to East Dark World without killing Aghanim. But Aga logically still could be required to get to East Dark World. That being said, in Crosskeys, those are pretty rare seed layouts. Really, any seed layout that requires killing Aghanim for reasons other than the thing under the Lumberjack are very rare. Lynn decides not to follow this. So I believe Andy, when he found that, went straight through it and didn't actually check Eastern Palace entrance. But with the mirror here, is actually going to be able to rectify his orphan from earlier.
Pay the monkey, see what we can see. And today it is just a fairy.
And yes, I believe you can Big Bomb Hammer by getting a kern jump to East Dark World and then screen transitioning on 0, but you have to actually use the bomb from the Igor that is sitting there chucking bombs at you because you can't pull a bomb with your big bomb attached to you. Okay. It's a lot to track with 2 different people, and so I'm overwhelmingly likely. So Lin finds his bottle, and actually is going to be pretty happy that he hasn't found Sick Kid yet, because he will not get punished for not having had that. I mean, as near as I can tell, it looks like the sort of seed-breaking play right now is going through Desert Palace and getting spit out in Mire so that you can get to Palace of Darkness. Palace of Darkness is at Mire Shed, and the connector to it is through the Desert Right entrance, which will spit you out at Mire. And again, this is why it's wise to not evaluate leads and cross keys particularly early, because I would now put Andy pretty firmly in the lead. Shulzer Desert Main is sitting at Ice Rod Cave, with right next to Swamp Palace and Skullwoods. And so I suspect if we were to see Lin make that play, we will see him make the play specifically to Skullwoods to beat the dungeon and then walk himself out of Desert Palace.
And Andy using the mirror to finally check that center door here, and nothing in the main door of Hyrule Castle. But taking the opportunity to grab some money over on the Pyramid Ledge.
Did Andy go back to check Graveyard Ledge at this point, or is he still kind of in his doing stuff combo? I mean, this will be a good time for him to do it, but...
Yeah, he hasn't popped back over there yet.
Say Lin's going to be making the Desert Palace play here. I suspect it will be he will kill Mothula and then follow up to Desert. Nope, never mind, Lin's making the Zora play. Starting with this. This is another place that it's pretty easy to do a splash delete setup from, especially with Canis Samaria. Yeah, if you're looking to learn cross keys, one of the things that I think is a really, really good thing to practice and learn is to sort of figure out these whirlpools and how you can use them to route better. Because it is super useful to make your routing efficiency so much higher in this game. And Lin is phenomenal at it. And Andy is pretty good at it.
Yeah, I've been taking some time to get myself more familiar with the whirlpools and utilizing them as much as possible now. So it's been, it's definitely helps a lot when it comes to just, okay, where can I go next? What's the fastest check for me to do? Oh, I can take a whirlpool. This one's actually faster.
Yeah, I think the most notable spot for it in particular is you can combine the Catfish area with the Dark Shopping Mall area, which won't actually be a huge deal in this seed because we already got spit out of Dark Shopping Mall. But in most seeds, you take 2 areas that are very, very easy to orphan and can kind of combine them together into a play that by itself is actually a pretty good independent play. As Lin is going to scum that money back because he wants no part of Zora's pity.
Yeah, that makes sense. No need for the arrows. Not yet.
And Lin once again making the splash deletion play. Maybe this time it will be the fabled play to Skullwoods and I won't look silly. Or perhaps he will. Well, he won't be going to Hobo. If he was going to Hobo, he'd start from Link's house. And Andy is now going back to rectify his mistake at Graveyard Ledge. Let's see if Andy's going to feel foolish or just really bad. Nah, he'll just feel a little silly. And then we'll be starting off and trying to take out Mothula, looking to take a 2-0 dungeon lead here. For all the complete nothing that matters.
Yeah, we don't know if Mothula is going to be a pendant yet or not, so it's a mystery for us if it's going to be worth it for the sake of getting a crystal, or might get an item, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, Lynn's also been prepping for this. He specifically bottled a fairy when he jumped down Spec Rock, which makes the 6-heart moth a little bit less scary.
Yeah, the moth is scary, but the spikes are what are truly hateful here.
Yeah, I mean, the worst part of this fight is that if your attack knocks Mothula into a spike, your attack does no damage. That can make this kind of a brutal fight, especially because the spikes get more and more out of control over time, but the half magic helps a lot, as we see there is. Lynn has a pretty clean Mothula. Doesn't get really anything out of it, except for a pendant.
So now we know what all pendants are, so we know it's Swamp, we know it's Skull Woods, and we know it's Eastern. So, whatever that means to us, not that exciting.
And you could theoretically say this is an oof for Lynn, but honestly, I think Lynn is going to be, with this play overall, Lynn is going to be happy because the presence of Mothula there pulled him towards the play that he needs to make in this seat.
Yeah, this'll be the payoff for going for Mothula.
And honestly, I go into these seats expecting to do all dungeons, and so I never really mind when someone drops a pendant. Odd. And with still only one key, we'll only be able to get the exact same chest that Andy was able to get. But at least we'll pick up his mirror and his flute, which he will feel lukewarm about, I suspect, at this point, because of how long it took him to get here.
Yeah. I'm also still keeping in mind now the Quake medallion on pedestal. So the only hope that we have for Quake being required now is, and therefore Pet being required, is if one of our missing dungeons is behind Turtle Rock entrance.
Or entrances. Oh, sorry, or items.
Oh,
if it
true.
happens to be like Mire Shed or some. Oh, we've already seen Mire Shed. I think we're still missing one of the fairies. I think we've seen all the 5 items caves. Or in the rare situations, I guess. Did we see Paradox Cave already? No, right?
No, we haven't seen Paradox.
In which case, there is a super rare scenario where it could be Paradox Cave if the other 2 connectors go to connector-only spots. Like, for instance, if Paradox Cave is in Turtle Rock and both ends of Laser Bridge, which I have seen before.
Oh, that
or
would be brutal!
Both ends of the Turtle Rock Bridge. But yes, I would definitely be having Pedestal on a blinking red light right now. Although I do think it is one of those ones that you won't know for a long time. Really, until you hit Go mode, you probably won't know if you need Pedestal or not.
And we have our big key to Eastern now over on Linlinlin's side. on the desert ledge.
So interesting to see if Lin is going to end up killing Armos, because he is right here. But on the other hand, he does know it's a green pendant and is probably going to be unexcited to redip Eastern Palace. Especially with not having seen Sahas really yet, which we know is on Southwest Death Mountain Foothill Cave, but he does not know. I mean, Alpha, it's not rare for a sword upgrade to be on the pedestal, but because swords are progressive, it is very, very nearly impossible for a required Master Sword to be on ped. You could construct a scenario where it happens. It would have to be something along the lines of you would need, like, both swords on the tablets and the required Master Sword or something like that. But it's pretty unlikely, as Andy finds GT here and is going to be able to make straight for the right side. We do know that at least the hammer can't be in Compass Room, because we did find a Hammerlock GT key.
And Linlinlin just making 300 rupees off of the potion shop.
And going to actually make that play into Eastern Palace. Which, like I said, is not shocking. I wouldn't have been surprised either way.
Well, with one crystal and a pendant already collected, Eastern isn't that, it's not that much of a detour really to go in and beat Armos. It's pretty fast.
Yeah, it is pretty fast. Andy is doing Tile Room right now, and therefore is putting on his cape, and if you are grabbing onto a wall with the cape, your cape does not drain magic. Andy, just
That was
pick
so
up the full
cool.
magic.
There we go.
Not worth
Way
the
to
time.
go.
That was not worth the time, Andy. Just pick it up right away. Yeah, Andy isn't doing Boomerang Tile Room like cool people do. Andy himself probably going to be making the trek all the way down to Ice Armos, though, which is not going to be great. Alright, so there are the flippers, but that's pretty heavily out of logic.
Yeah, that doesn't put us on the right track of where logic is pointing us at all.
We also now know, for instance, that the hammer is not in Swamp Palace. Ubramba, you're welcome to summon Trez. I don't know if he's around, though. Nora, you want to check for us on that?
He was around before the stream, actually, so I don't know what he's doing now.
Then gonna do the 18 arrows and out strat here. Nice quick NMG strat here from Lin, who shoots a 19th arrow because he can't count, and or for good measure. But is going to be making this play to Ice Armos. This is going to be a interesting. Oh, so he can do this bump jump fine now, but it is going to take some time here.
Oh, denied.
So we see the rage quick swap there. Is Andy just going to do that? Oh, he's into the invisible path.
Andy,
This
what
could
you
be
doing, buddy?
Real bad for him, actually.
Oh, thank
Okay,
goodness.
so Andy at least has powder, so he'll pick up health here.
Okay.
Rocky to Hyrule Castle. Which doesn't really
Alright, so there is our sewers key.
Andy is going to try to do this with Cane of Burn. That doesn't have the half magic that Lin does, and so he's now going to be doing some fighter sword slashes. A little bit of trivia, because the damage tables in Link to the Past make tons of sense, that the fighter sword does significantly more damage to Armos than the master sword does, which is the single worst weapon that you can fight Armos with, other than perhaps a boomerang.
Really? I did not know that Master Sword was worse on Armos.
That is why you will find people, if you have Master Sword, will either be using sword beams or will be using spins. It will almost never slash. I thought Hammer did more damage, it was just terrible. But either way, Andy finds nothing as a real Zelda that Jeep team play. How is Master Sword worse? Well, the way the damage tables in this game work is that there are effectively 4 classes of damage. I'm lying to you already, there's really 5, but for all intents and purposes, think of it as 4. And different mobs have take different damage from classes 1 through 4. So for instance, Mothula takes no damage from class 4 weapons. It's to make it so he doesn't die to spikes if he gets hit with spikes. Which is why in original versions of Rando you couldn't damage Mothula with the Butter Sword, and they had to patch it in so the Butter Sword only does type 3 damage to Mothula. But exactly, as Incoherent says, there are not set damage for the damage types in this game. But Fighter Sword, for some reason, has wonky hit damages on the Armos. I'm assuming to try to make it a more easy boss in case you happen to be fighting him and run out of arrows in the original game. But I did say there were 5 types of damage, and that is because Igors actually have a 5th class of damage, and they are the only enemies in the game that take extra damage from Butter Sword spins compared to Butter Sword slashes.
And we have our Master Sword over on Andy's side in Paradox Cave.
Andy breathing a sigh of relief that he already killed Ice Armos.
And the big key to Desert. So that is one check. That is something can be looked at later.
And if you're going to argue with anyone, do not argue with Zero Rush on this, because that is somebody who knows his fucking damage tables, trust me. And Andy, yep, is going to be pretty okay with that Master Sword now that he is not fighting Ice Armos with it.
There is our small swamp key.
We'll see if Andy's going to try to make a play to swamp here. I would dislike it pretty aggressively, honestly, given how locked those flippers are. Yes, Shadow, that is the main usage for Butter Sword spins, and also for killing Igors faster. I was like, correct me if I'm wrong, Zero Rush, but Igors are the only things that take extra damage for Butter Sword spins, right? Hinoxes. God, why do I always call them? Sorry. I meant the giant single eye things, which is why I always call them Igors. But they are in fact called Hinoxes. If you ever watch a stream where I play Randomizer, you will get confused because I will use the wrong name for and also don't play Randomizer, it's bad.
I have gotten into the habit when I'm just practicing some rando myself, is that I just call every enemy, including bosses, I just call them like complete gibberish words. I'm like, oh, and here is the blibbity blah, because I can't remember even dungeon bosses' names anymore for some reason.
Yes, Lin does have that extra knowledge about Quake being on a pedestal compared to Andy. However, that's about as unlikely as a useful item as you might find. So the hammer and the hookshot boots are probably the 2 big ticket items that we're really missing right now. As Andy looks to his left, looks to his right, and nopes out of Ice Palace, but we'll see if he decides to come back here, like Lin did, or we'll just keep putting it off. I'll say hammer on Bombos Tablet would probably be the single best placement that Andy could find in the entire game, because Lin's unlikely to do it until it's his last location or he has mitts and can combo it with Purple Chest, since Lin has already been down here. But I do believe the only thing that we got from Ice Palace was a hammer-locked small key to Ganon's Tower. So that would give Andy the information that, assuming he has all the Ganon Tower key logic correct, that would give him the information that hammer cannot be in Swamp Palace. Or more to the point, cannot be locked behind the flippers, and thus going to Swamp Palace before you have the hammer is probably a bad decision. Especially dependent.
Yeah, just trying to think of trying to keep in mind the logic that was broken with the flippers. You're running out of things to say what can't be locking logically the flippers, and then see, okay, what of that do I need? What are the chances that flippers are going to get me to it? Compared to all the other checks that could be done without considering flippers logic.
Not only has Lin not turned in the green pendant, Lin does not know where Sahasrara is, because Lin found Bumper Cave without a mirror. And decided not to double up and go check on that right away.
And Lin's about to get disappointed by Laser Bridge.
Yep, and meanwhile Andy is going to get disappointed by Ice Palace, so it's really just a seed of disappointment all over.
I like this.
Angelo, the bow is on, and goodbye, Mr. Linlinlin. The bow is on Moldorm, who is in the Dark Sanctuary entrance in Tower of Hera. And I do agree with Incoherent that Lin is setting up as if he's going to walk through Turtle Rock here. Which you can do with relatively few number of keys. I'll say, theoretically, Hammer is a very, very good go mode item, as Andy finds that Ganon Tower is small key and now should know that his hammer locks the flippers. But in reality, Hammer leaves a lot of really, really bad orphans.
Yeah, this isn't pretty.
That is correct, Incoherent. It takes 0 keys to get from Laser Bridge to Chomp Chest. The hammer locks the flippers because the hammer locked that Ganon's Tower key that Andy just found. And all items in the compass room in Ganon's Tower are locked behind 4 Ganon Tower small keys, which is where the flippers were. These are things that you pick up when you play a lot of Crosskeys versus watch a little bit of Crosskeys. Because they're only logically locked by 4 small keys. But the point to take out of it is he knows that his hammer cannot be locked by the flippers because logically the hammer locks the flippers. So even though he has the flippers, they should be unappealing to follow if what he's looking for is the hammer. Hopefully that makes sense. I like key logic a lot and find it very cool, so.
It's cool, but not many will be able to follow it.
There are actually very few places in the game where actual key logic meets up with realistic key logic. The way it's locked behind 4 keys, by the way, Mead, is because you could go down left side, spend all of your keys, climb GT, spend all of your keys, and then you don't have a key to get to the door past Tile Room. The crazy one for Ganon's Tower is that as we find the hammer there in Thieves' Town, the crazy one is that Ice Armos itself is only 3 key locked, even though all of the things on the way to Ice Armos are 4 key locked. As incoherent mimicked me in chat. And here comes the Trinex kill from Lin, which is not surprising. We've had the tools to do this for a while, although Lin messes up a little bit because I think he was trying to avoid having any ice come down on this fight, but not a huge deal with half magic. I believe this will be an 11 out of 12 clear of Turtle Rock. With that hammer find, the only hard requirements we still have, I don't think we found the Pod Big Key yet. I would say are the Desert Big Key and the Pod Big Key, and then for both of these runners, either the Boots or the Hookshot to get past Mr. Moldorm II.
Yes. They will need to find a couple of things, but it's not much left, honestly, for us to be able to start speeding through a bunch of this. And also the location of Misery Mire is still completely in the air.
And I agree, DCM. It is a very, very fair bet that it will be required to... Oh, and the Mire Big Key. Oh no, Andy has the Mire Big Key. Okay. I was doing it just between the two of them.
There's our Pod Big Key in Thieves' Town.
Alright.
So that is one less thing to worry about.
Lin is going to pull his flippers here. And yes, that does mean that the torch is the Ice Big Key, so we may not actually need the boot for that. He needs to go to Hera for his bow, or he needs to find the second bow. That is true, they could just Moldorm bounce, but they are going to need either the boot or the hookshot for Misery Mire anyway. That being said, if Lin Scope Bullet's Big Key is not required. But yeah, I think this is, we have a set where both runners have a lot of distinct advantages that they know and their opponent doesn't know, which I always think makes for the sort of most interesting races. I don't particularly enjoy seeing two runners walk in lockstep. I don't particularly enjoy racing two runners walking in lockstep.
Yeah, no, there was one a few days ago where it was a lot of that. Two runners just following each other for
I do believe
quite a lot
that
of
was
it.
the Top Life versus Allison match as one of the runners in the match.
Yes, okay, yes, that was you. I wasn't sure. I did a few matches in the past week or so.
It was maybe the most boring seed I've ever played because the entire seed was on a line for about everywhere after 40 minutes.
Yeah, it was really linear. You had to hop around a lot, but it was still like, oh, here is the one check I can do now. And this leads me to one new check I can do now, which is on the other side of the map.
Yep. So Shadow, logically, there is not really a way for the... yes, Mire Main is Desert Palace, right, that's correct. It is possible to have it logically required behind 4 keys if, say... well... No, I actually don't think it's possible. Because in order to have it behind 4 keys, you would have to have either the hammer or you would have to have the items to get to 4 key doors, and nothing stops you from going from a 4 key door to Isarmos. Like, once you can get to any of the 4 key doors, you can get all the way. Yeah, you know, Top Life, I heard the runners in that race did a really good job and are very interesting, successful people in life.
It was very fun to watch because it was painful in a fun way.
I'm gonna disagree with you. It was just painful.
For the audience, I mean, I'm not coming from this from the perspective of a runner at all.
Fair enough. Alright, so Andy, if he drops down here, is going to find the back of Desert Palace, which he can complete. I'll say is, we can put that final nail in the pedestal coffin.
Well, we might as well just call this a jet scene now, because there is no pedestal and I'm disappointed.
Isn't particularly jet, but...
See, my ideal seed is I root for, like, 3-hour seeds. I love 3-hour seeds. Anything that is, you know, above 2.5 hours, I'm satisfied with.
My favorite seeds, the way they line up, are the things where a visible item is placed in a way that forces the structure of the seed to be very interesting. So, for instance, if you were to see the mirror on a race game, that is a very interesting placement. Because it tells you that the only way to get that mirror is by following a connector, and thus the way that you are going to play is going to be to follow a lot more connectors than you might otherwise. Similarly, something like the hammer locked in the magic bat spot visibly says a ton about the way the seed works as well. And I always think that generates very, very interesting seeds. Glacius, we have not found Misery Mire yet. It is the only outstanding dungeon still for both of our runners. Says Andy, puts Landmo on the Friar. I do not think Ped could be boot for the Misery Mire entrance then, because Ped is quick.
Yeah, and we've already acquired the other 2 medallions, so if it is in Turtle Rock, we get, we already have the medallion for it, but it can be checked.
Lynn's gonna want to follow that connector. That'll be a big connector for him to follow, but I suspect he's going to check these 2 Light World entrances first. Because it will get him his hammer. Oh, never mind. I thought the Thieves' Town was up there. Well, this is going to be a full clear Thieves' Town for Lynn, as well as his hammer. I suspect he was going to beat the dungeon anyway, but the hammer now means he doesn't have to orphan the big chest.
Yeah, this is a nice full clear of it.
Alpha, yes. The swords in this game are progressive, which means when you find a sword, you don't actually find the butter sword, you find the next level of sword. The gloves are similarly progressive, which is why that you will never just find the mitt sitting there if you don't already have a glove. And
same with the bow.
I'll say, and that's a new change from version 31 that I think has been very nice overall for rounding up the game. So Andy's now going to do front of Turtle Rock, but is still missing the big key to be able to kill Trinex. So we'll see how far he decides he wants to go. The boomerang is not progressive, no.
I mean, as vitally important as both the boomerangs are, they decided to keep those
Don't you say bad things about
out.
the red boomerang. Don't you say bad things about my splash deletion, buddy.
Bloomerang is bae.
It's not. It's bad. The blue boomerang used to be the best boomerang until splash deletion was discovered, and now it is not close.
Everybody is divided on this topic.
I suspect that either the boots are locking Hook or Hook is locking boots. Top of GT for both of them would be about the meanest placement you can possibly do.
Oh, that would be nice.
Yes, Lin can hover shoulders. Lin can hover very solidly. I say Andy now kind of doing some of the overworld check cleanup that Lin has already done. I suspect he's probably going to end up heading towards Tower of Hera on this route, then.
Yeah, that would make sense. That's not too far off the track that we're on.
We're now just seeing the two runners kind of cover each other's territories. Nothing super exciting here other than the big keys that Lin has picked up. Lin probably is going to follow this up by following Hookshot Cave and then jumping down and killing Lando. That being said, I do believe that our runners are either Hookshot or Boots from Go Mode if they can find Misery Mire. Because Andy's now going to find out the news that nobody cares about the pedestal.
That is a relief.
I would say it's pretty even right now, Rotted. Lin had an advantage early, Andy had an advantage in the middle, and I think it's kind of closed up.
Yeah, they're both still looking for hookshot boots and the entrance to Misery Mire. So it's just who finds what first.
Yeah. And I guess it's not as important for Lin to be able to walk through Hookshot Cave and jump down because he has found the other connector to Dark Death Mountain through Hylia. Yeah, Lin instead is going to go down this. And yes, Andy's missing the bow, which he will just naturally find out of beating Tower of Hera.
Yeah, it's just a matter of time before he goes in.
Yep, he's on the route there. He's going to hit it in this pass.
Okay, yes.
I think we have found every big key that we require at this point. So the big key on the torch is not going to be required, I think, in any circumstance. Because if you can get that big key, you have the ability to beat the game if you are Lin or Andy after killing Trinex. Ice Palace logically requires the big key, but does not realistically require the big key. That is correct. More of both runners kind of covering each other's paths. Not really to see anything new here for an instant. I feel like Palace of Darkness is probably the most suspicious place that we have right now, but even so, we're not, like, everything in Palace of Darkness, logically at least, is locked behind 4 or more small keys at this point.
Yeah.
And so
There's so many small keys, and we only have 3.
Yep. And our runners have been spit out on top of the pyramid already, which is why neither of them checked it through here.
Oh no, don't start yawning.
Sorry. I suppose Swamp Palace is also a reasonable play here. Since even if you're doing Hookless Swamp, you're not going to end up in a position where you actually need to do the back of Swamp. But yes, the big key of Turtle Rock, let's just sit down here. So Andy now has the ability to kill Trinex. I suspect the next 10 minutes or so will consist of a lot of killing bosses.
Yeah. There's not a whole lot else open up.
So Lynn decides he's too good for a shield upgrade, unlike humble Andy who accepted the gift from the catfish. Lynn also has the sword advantage right now from having done Turtle Rock Mainland, which is actually going to be a tangible time save on at least Cold Stare and Trinex, which are probably, and Vitreous as well, I guess, with no silver arrows.
Yeah, Tempered Sword is a nice upgrade to get. Butter Sword is not as exciting.
No, Butter Sword is, who cares?
It's the least appealing color of all these
I know
swords.
Andy knows how to Moldarm bounce. I think Lynn knows the theory. I don't know how practiced he is on it, but I think Lynn is going to be making the play to Palace of Darkness here. That is what this play looks like to me. And yes, he is going for Desert, not for Swamp. Andy does not know why kids love the taste of Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
I was gonna say Portuguese, so I guess we're both right.
Lynn is making the pod play, and Andy is making the Paradox Cave connector that he didn't check. Yeah, okay. Well, this is actually going to clean up an orphan for Andy, which I think he'll appreciate. Unless he's going to the one he already did. This is smart play from him, though. He's going straight at the bosses that he knows he needs to kill. Like, especially in Palace of Darkness. For instance, if the boot or hookshot is here, he could be in possible go mode and just say, you know what, I'm not even going to do the back of Palace of Darkness. Although, obviously, with his inability to have found Misery Buyer so far, he's going to be a little bit nervous about it.
Can I, like, pour coffee into my USB for you? Would that help you?
I don't drink coffee. I
Tea?
apologize.
I have tea.
Andy is over everything right now after that jump down.
Oh my.
Meanwhile, Andy is now going to be going into kill Trinex. We'll see if he goes up or to Trinex first. So he's going to go up first. So the difference here is in Crosskeys, when you defeat Trinex, you get spit out at the very front of Turtle Rock, which means that it actually would have locked him, or not locked him out of doing these checks, but it would have made them a lot slower for him. Especially as someone who's already checked the front of Turtle Rock. So he is going to pick up his Master Sword out of this. Excuse you, I have my strawberry lemonading sparkling ice naturally flavored sparkling water. I don't need no
That's a lot of sparkles.
It needs to tell me just how sparkly it is. It's a little insecure.
Aw. I'm sure it's beautiful.
It was 80 cents at Safeway, so I'm gonna go with it.
Very nice. I'm currently consuming the limited edition cherry vanilla Coca-Cola.
I liked cherry vanilla Dr. Pepper. I'm a little less thrilled on cherry vanilla Coke. But we're all about Dr. Pepper in this household.
I don't know what it is, but I've never enjoyed it. I've never enjoyed it. I mean, if there is nothing to drink, I will, but I've never wanted to drink a Dr. Pepper, ever.
I don't know what's wrong with you people. Dr. Pepper is delicious. I'll say I usually don't enjoy sparkling water, but I've gotten okay with some of these flavors at least, as Andy's gonna pick up his tempered sword.
There we go.
And is now going to whack the multicolored worm. Which might... Never mind. We're just gonna cut my mic right there.
Yeah, okay, yep. You, sir, have had enough.
Meanwhile, Lynn going for the backup fellas of darkness.
That's it, the please stand by screen just like wipes in. We will be right back, folks, after we get new commentators.
Someone actually needs to summon Tress for real.
Shh. He's probably sleeping. Shh. Don't wake Trez.
Anyway, Palace of Darkness was empty.
Oh no!
My indiscretions cost Tress his sleep.
I can't even. Oh no. Okay, I'm calming down. Things are happening. Look, desert. Ta-da!
We're sorry. The number you have attempted to reach is no longer in service.
Oh no.
Please try back and call again.
Okay, we're checking out the big chest in Desert Palace. And it's just a heart piece.
And Andy's making the pod play too. So it feels like overall Lynn's... Well, I wouldn't say he's necessarily ahead, because he still needs to actually kill land mow, but that's a pretty fast go compared to doing Palace of Darkness.
Ahem.
Hi, Tress!
So, Chad, do you all know the movie Gladiator, where Caesar,
Oh no!
where Caesar's actually like giving his thumbs up or his thumbs down to actually decide on the destiny of
Are you
Gladiator?
not entertained? Is this not why I am here?
So this is my reaction. All right.
Blimp, it looks like you're on your own now. I'm done for.
Oh no!
Notable, by the way, that Sahasrara is now dead, as Lynn did finally find it.
Oh, thank goodness.
Excuse you, my mic clearly cut out before I said bad things.
Yes, there were no bad things. It's fine. We're cool. Everybody's cool.
Oh, it's screaming.
Oh, Trez with these fancy commands. Alright, well...
There you go.
Well, I'm happy that Trez got to stop in for a moment. I apologize that I went quiet there for a second.
And meanwhile, I think this is Lynn making desert play now. Because I believe he's walking into... Yeah, this should be Hyrule Castle. Oh, no, this is Mimic Cave. And then I think he should be walking to Hyrule Castle, which will put him at Desert Palace. And so we will see both runners at 6 crystals very shortly. Only looking for... or I guess 5 crystals. Still looking for Misery Mire and a way to get into Misery Mire. I am interested to see if one of the runners is going to be willing to take the plunge to go up GT. So we know Andy can Moldorm bounce.
Yeah, it's I feel like the GT climb isn't that outrageous of an idea. It needs to happen eventually.
Yeah,
so as long as we're banking on no required validation chest, we're A-okay.
I would say, and especially because validation chest is going to be locked behind Go mode unless validation chest locks the Mire entrance. Which seems very, very unlikely.
Yeah, I don't see that happening.
And no, nobody has blown open Pyramid yet. Where is Bomb Shop? So I suspect what we will see, if I can correctly predict how Lynn is going to route here, as I've played with him a lot, so I have a pretty good sense on this, is that Lynn is going to, after this, save and quit, start at Link's house, walk to Hype Cave where Ice Palace is, beat Ice Palace, mirror, grab the big bomb, and then walk to, which is in Light World Hype Cave, and then walk to check that entrance to see if it. Mid-lock spots are not all dead, so it could be validation mids. That is maybe the one risk you run with, I guess, validation boots with Mire and a boost lock spot. But it seems exceedingly likely that one of those two is at least locked behind the other. Oh, did we get spit out of Pyramid Bomb Crack already? Okay, never mind then. We won't do that. If Pyramid Bomb was a connector, then yeah, we're not going to do that. Even though that routing does make sense. I still think Lynn probably goes to Ice Palace here. Lynn's pretty diligent about doing the things you have to do first.
Yeah, this makes sense to me.
And
Andy waiting for that cutscene.
Siberian. And I do suspect it's more likely that we see the hookshot first, and the boots are just locked behind the hookshot either in left side GT or hookshot cave.
Smith's sequence wouldn't be that exciting unless we found the myths.
Yes. And I have a little bit of a feeling I'm curious if either runner would be willing to bomb jump left side GT now, because on the one hand, it is logically locked behind the hookshot, but if you think that the boots are just going to be on left side GT locked behind the hookshot, that gets you into Mire if that's what you're looking for, if you find Mire, of course. There's some interesting ideas here, because usually it's a very bad idea to sequence break past your go mode item, as this is another very, very valid spot for it. I'm a little surprised to see it before Ice Palace, personally, but maybe he won't do the entire thing, and maybe he'll just do this. But Ice is very easy to get to, at least. You can just flute to 4 and hit the Dark World portal.
You haven't missed much in the last half hour, Shadow. There's been some dungeons cleared, and my lovely co-com Allison got in trouble.
We're sorry, your call cannot be completed. Try again.
So yes, I'm just here talking to myself. I've been doing a fantastic impression for the past half an hour.
It's really uncanny. You should see this.
I actually had the ventriloquist doll here on my lap, just for, you know, continuity's sake, whether you can see it or not.
She's Billy Flynning it, what can we say?
Oh no!
Let's be very, very clear about what happened here. And Andy is following Lynn right into Swamp Palace. Which is not particularly shocking. Swamp is locked by 4 GT Smalls.
Yeah, we are nowhere near that. This has been... I mean, key logic is not something that people pay a lot of attention to, but it is something that you need to keep in mind, especially later on into a run like this.
Oh, so I actually
you need to know where you can find the things.
This is where you really should be paying attention to key logic if you're a runner here, because then it's very, very important to understand where stuff can and can't be.
Ah, yes. Someone summoned the Wrath of Trez. I didn't know someone was in chat today.
Also, I know somebody had a pretty decent run in the tournament, but I don't think someone was in it. Actually, no, it's someone, not somebody. Shit.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Someone! That's who.
So, for real talk, the stupidest way I have won a race in this tournament is I almost got knocked out in the second round of losers bracket. I won by 20 seconds after finding my hookshot on left side Swamp Palace, but I went right side first instead of left side first, and the hookshot was on right side. And I think that by itself saved me 20 seconds of not having to go back through these rooms.
Oh, that's nice.
So we'll see if the answer is in Swamp or not, and it does not look like it is. So both of our runners will be disappointed here. Then right now nursing maybe like a minute or so overall lead. I think they're relatively even on stuff they've done at this point. Lynn has killed Armos Knights as well, which Andy has not. And might be a play Andy goes for. Lin is going to make the Ice Palace play now. We'll see a very, very quick cleanup of this dungeon here. Lin is going to have to hit the switch though if he wants to kill Cold Stare, because you can skip doubling back and hitting the switch if you have the big key. Unfortunately, that big key is basically in Idaho.
Yeah, there is no blessing of a big key today.
But everything but the big chest and Cold Stare is in logic in this dungeon without that big key, with Lin having both small keys. But Andy is going to follow Lin here and go straight to Ice Palace, which is unsurprising.
I mean, this is like a fun little follow the leader bit here.
Lin is through the wall, very minorly walking through. And we're gonna see new checks here for the first time, besides Swamp Palace, in a long time. But
And it's a big 20! Wah, 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 wah.
So it looks like we are down to Cold Stare here, and then we're really hitting the dregs of this seed. And Cold Stare is not even in logic. In fact, I'm trying to even think of what we have that we haven't touched. I guess it's the first two chests on the GT climber in logic without any small keys. Which, by the way, is horrible.
Yeah, this is this
we
is
can't
not
get
fun.
We can't get into Turtle Rock Front. There's no mitts yet. So if Cold Stare ends up having the progression, I think it's a fairly safe bet that the Ice Palace big key has to be on the climb. And losing a little time here with a somewhat sloppy Cold Stare.
Yeah, that was like a solid 10-second fight. Disappointed. Disappointed.
See, you're joking, but I'm serious. And I bet Lin's actually disappointed in himself in his fight. Because he let them out of the corner, which can cost you some time.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that much time, but in this context, doing this sort of tournament in a race and knowing your opponent, it's definitely something you don't feel good about.
So I think Lin's going to be doing Bombo's Tablet, and then he just may be making the climb. Yeah, you actually can do Icebreaker in normal speedruns of Link to the Past. It's just not actually allowed by the NMG rule set. But as Incoherent said, you can't do Harapot because you will not have Hookshot. See, Andy saved like 2 seconds on that fight. Oh, but yeah, also if you're playing on your cart, what Zelda said. So Andy does have Eastern Palace still, which Lin does not. But yes, as much as they could theoretically Moldorm jump, that you cannot Moldorm jump your way into Misery Mire. Unless there's a way to do it at Randomizer with mini Moldorms, which would be hilarious, but is quite beside the point. But Lin is going to make the GT climb here, and I think Andy's doing the same thing, which actually surprises me that he's not doing Eastern Palace.
He's just like, I guess it's just that he's weighing what his, what options there are in the way of numbers of checks that can be done.
Oh, okay, and Lin now knows that Pyramid Fairy is dead. I don't recall if we actually saw someone check the top entrance here in the pyramid. Because I know they got spit out here.
Yes, Andy did check this earlier.
did?
It's useless.
Uh-oh. Well, that's a quick turnaround.
Whoops.
I did correctly predict that the boots would lock the hookshot, but I don't think they're on left side anymore. That's a little rough. And if we haven't missed something, it's gonna have to be in probably the first 3 chests of the climb.
We would like to hope.
Don't think either runner checked that. That's some very interesting information. I was saying, Lynn's going to be falling behind here, cleaning up on some of the stuff that Andy hasn't done. Boots cannot be vanilla. Lynn has checked green pendant already.
Kiki was done on Andy's side, so we do know that this is nothing of value. Just a fairy, I believe? Is it? Yes.
I do think that it's literally just the climb left right now. But that may also, like, Andy will have an advantage if it is just the climb. But even just opening up this seed is going to be cool, as we'll see. Yeah, I think Lynn has to go for the climb now, too. I think you get a lot of pretty sharp opinions on... Huh? Lynn thinks he hasn't done something on the mountain here. Maybe ether tablet? So Andy with a very nice climb. You're right, no, and Lynn has actually checked that mire key too, so he knows it's not that. So there has to be an entrance that Lynn hasn't checked. But yeah, boots cannot be in validation. That is a fact, but they sure can be on this climb. I do believe they checked the Spike Cave entrance, yes. Andy checked it on his first time. Oh, Lynn hasn't been up here because he never followed the connector to Hookshot Cave. That's what he's doing. He's checking this entrance here instead of climbing.
Ooh.
And he's checking.
It's a bit more time.
Yup. Andy gonna get more time to build this lead out. Then you've... Okay, so Lynn's gonna... Yeah. This is actually some pretty clever routing for Lynn. He's closing off an orphan, and I think he's going to end up in Village of Outcasts from this play. Alright.
Alright, let's see what's in this. Boots!
Yeah. And there are the boots on the climb, which is a really miserable placement.
Yep, that was a nice little trick.
And now Lynn is going to get spat out on Hookshot Cave, and Agatu is required. So now it is all down to finding Misery Mire for go mode.
And there are the mitts.
And the Moldam bounce could have been catastrophic in this seed. Actually, there was a tournament seed earlier that was almost decided by this, where Zelga Moldorm bounced and missed his mitts there that ended up being required.
Yes,
But
well,
forgot where Skullwoods was.
I think it was, Nori has rolled, I believe, 2 validation required seeds.
I think this is a pretty heavy advantage for Andy at this point. Unless Meyer, well, so even so, yeah, I have to think this is a big advantage for Andy at this point. Like, Lin is going to climb now, but he's basically a full climb behind. And I can't, like, there's nothing that they could be looking for. Like, Andy has no incentive to do item checks at this point.
Going to get that bad news on Linlinlin's side.
Saying Lin is probably coming here ready to bomb jump, hoping to pull the boots, and instead finds that.
Yep.
Yeah, this is about as bad as, but yes, Andy is finding Meyer from Go Mode, but I do believe Andy has the ability to access every single entrance in the game at this point. And it will not take him particularly. So yeah, Andy knows there's no items he's looking for. He doesn't need a hook shot.
He is just looking for entrances, so it's pretty quick checks.
Pretty unlikely to see Lin coming back from this at this point. Andy's not going to kill time for silvers. Yes, pedestal is Quake and green pendant is trash. Both are dead. So I think at this point got Dark World Bonk Rocks next to Link's house. We have Bonk Rocks next to Link's house, and we have Hammer Pegs as the 3 spots we have not checked, if I am counting correctly.
I vote Hammer Pegs.
Sure seems possible, doesn't it?
There was one.
Oh, and yes, and Turtle Rock, you're right.
Yeah. True.
But I suspect Andy will have checked all of those by the time that Lin has finished his climb. Lumberjack Tree is dead. It has a heart piece there. Is this Go Mode for Andy? Yes, it is.
There we are.
So now we're sort of on the long, slow descent into GG. On a very, very special seed.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot that can go wrong here for Andy. It would take a lot of trying for him to lose this lead.
Yeah. I mean, overall, I think the difference is going to be about that Eastern Palace play. Maybe a little bit more. Yes. No, Meyer was boots locked, Jacober, but they do in fact need to go. And yes, Redigurdos, it is slightly faster to take the left route through Meyer. So yeah, as it turns out, the play in this seed was to just climb GT with absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it turns out. Not what you usually expect, but it is very much a Crosskeys sort of deal.
Yeah, this is about as miserable as a seed gets if you can't hover. I mean, even if you can hover but can't bounce, it's pretty miserable. I mean, even if you can bounce, you don't want to like skip the validation chest if it's something you need.
Yeah, definitely. And here comes Linlinlin's hover. Both of them very good with it.
Yep. Like I said, both really, really good runners. And Lin decided to hundo everything before going for the climb, and Andy said he was going to go for it. And it is going to be the difference in this seed.
Yeah, getting those 2 extra boss fights in as well, compared to Andy, definitely lost Linlinlin some time.
Yeah. And I mean, not really a right choice or a wrong choice, just an unlucky choice for him in this one.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about routing. It's not that it's not that you're ignoring the obvious. It's that you're following the logic where it forks in 8 different directions. And Andy into the... And Andy into the Ganon fight, doing very good so far. It should be a quick battle, and soon enough a GG.
But overall, a very, very close race that was basically made on one decision at the very, very end of the seed.
Yeah, well, Linlinlin probably knows they're likely missing out, just having last location, that GT climb.
Yep.
So
Lin has to know he's not in a great spot right now. Like,
yeah,
it's not surprising to see someone last. Like, I think last locationing that climb in this situation is probably the right do, especially if you're not particularly comfortable with the Moldorm bounds. But it's just like it had to be the play that you were made, and sometimes it really do be like that.
it do. But I will say that Linlinlin won't feel too bad having this awareness now that they are behind, but getting your opponent finished notification now.
Sweating on his cam just watching the race. And that is GG's to our finisher.
GG's to Andy. Yeah, Lynn definitely can't feel too bad about this at all. Like, how close this was, with so much done, and last location in Ganon's tower climb. Definitely good execution.
Yeah, and I agree, Andy is underseeded at the 55 seed, but Andy is also, comparatively speaking, Andy is not super experienced with Crosskeys. And so, combined with having bad qualifier luck, he ended up very, very seeded down. This is the quarterfinals of the winners bracket, Jason. I was saying, Andy kind of went Crosskeys for the tournament last year, and didn't really play since then, and so he was again picking it up. Then meanwhile goes straight to Misery Mire to find the answer.
Yeah, this won't be a huge time differential between the two of them.
No. I was saying, I think Lin might be a little upset that he lost the seed, but I don't think he'll feel bad about how he played, given that he did do 2 extra bosses over Andy. This.
Yeah, more stuff cleared out, so it's gives you a bit of a confidence boost going into round 2.
I have no idea if that's even... I'm just going to start guessing at commands. First try!
Good job!
Yeah, I think we're down to 10 players left in the tournament at this point. There's 2 round of 12 matches that still need to be played, and 2 people into losers round 7, and 4 people in the winners semifinals, of which we are seeing 2 of them right now. The second game is not right now, DJ. They've got some time. They have an entire round and a half that needs to be played before whoever loses has to play.
Yeah, I have not seen, and I don't expect, not saying it won't happen, but I don't expect to see much of a double header going on into these best of 3s.
No. Seed blend and crosskeys is a very, very real thing. Where it becomes very easy to go, hey, I need to do, like, oh yes, there was this connector there. Wait, no, that was the last seed.
Yeah, even just as a volunteer commentating and tracking, doing multiple matches in a day throws me right for a loop.
Yeah, definitely. As Lin is picking up his 7th crystal and is going to swiftly follow to make some bacon. But really just 2 really spectacular times for these runners given how much both players cleared.
Yes, most definitely.
And I think is probably the most Moldorm bounce seed I have ever seen.
Yes!
I have seen other seeds. I have seen seeds where Moldorm bounce can be useful, but my goodness, is this a Moldorm bounce seed? Even though you don't actually need to Moldorm bounce.
But that was the writing on the wall up until the very last minute of this run.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Lin is comfortable with the Moldorm bounce, whereas Andy was comfortable enough to be willing to go for the climb since he knew he had to do it, as opposed to Eastern Palace, which he did not necessarily have to do. And similar for Skullwoods. Nori, I don't know. I'll say Lin obviously is finishing up. Did you ask Andy about coming in for an interview?
Oh, it looks like Andy will be joining after Lin finishes.
Okay, that makes sense. Oh, haha. I could read Discord where Nori clearly said that that's what was happening.
I just read out what she wrote.
Look, I'm just gonna say this attempt on my life and my credibility has left me scarred and deformed, and I can no longer think straight. From
As
my
you
own
should be. As you should be. Reading is not a speed strat.
Why would you drop frames when you can drop pages?
It might not be fast, but it is knowledge. Knowledge is power.
Then going for these nice triples as well.
And there he goes.
And Lin coming in with about a 6-minute deficit, which is about a GT climb, so roughly what we said.
Yeah, that's not bad at all. Excellent. So it looks like we will be getting a good interview after all of this. Once the runners have a moment to breathe first. And hello, GG Andy and GG Linlinlin.
Hello, GG's. GG.
Well,
Nice boots, dude.
Yeah. I didn't have much else. Like, at the end, it was just like, do I want to like go beat Skullwoods without 3 small keys? Do I want to go beat Green Pen and Eastern? Green Pen and Eastern was the only other like decent option. And I was like, let's just bomb jump to left side GT. I didn't look at the torch beforehand. So I'm like, let's bomb jump, do Stalfos room. And if it's not there, we'll just go upstairs. And I saw the hook on the torch. I just went right back up the stairs. It was like, we're going upstairs, I guess.
I literally did the same. I'm like, maybe the boots are somewhere locked by the hook shot.
Yep.
And I'm like, I saw the hook, I was like, nope, not doing that.
Yeah, I had been sort of speculating for several minutes going into that, being like, you know, I mean, you usually don't want to sequence break past your go mode, but the boots really look like they're going to be locked by, like, one of these two is locking the other at this point, so maybe you speculate, hey, I'm going to find the hookshot somewhere and just go and see if I can get my boots on left side. And then that dream died about 5 seconds into Ganon's tower. But I do think that was the Moldorm bouncest seed I've ever seen.
Yep. I had so when I found Hera, I had 1 entrance left, and if that was Meyer, I would have just been like, nope, not checking anything else. We're bouncing, but it was not there, unfortunately.
Yeah, it was one of those very last minute. Just it was begging for it to be last location, but Andy's benefit is he chose not to take those last couple of checks that were outside of GT and just went headfirst into it. Of it's just telling me to go here and be miserable the entire time.
My only issue is that, like, I still had Mire Shed and Spike Cave that I hadn't found, and I had a lot of entrances on top of the mountain. I was like, fine, I'll go check them, I guess.
Yeah, I'd say maybe there were 2 things overall in this seed that I thought were really, really big differentiators for the way that the end of the seed played out. The first one was really, really early on, was when you found Desert. Andy checked the right side of Desert items and immediately went out the right side of Desert, which dropped him in the Mire area, and then he could go to Pod and Mimic Clipped for his mirror, and obviously got the flute as well. Meanwhile, Lin went out the left side of Desert, which let him go out of Bumper Cave and check the Dark World, but meant that it took him a very, very long time to get to that mirror. And then the other thing that I think was maybe the, I guess, differentiator in the decision-making is that when you went through Paradox Cave and got spat out the bridge at Turtle Rock, Lin ended up going back into Paradox Cave and coming out the bottom. Andy, on the other hand, went through Hookshot Cave and got spat out on top of Hookshot Cave, and so he had already checked all that stuff on the top of Death Mountain, whereas Lin hadn't.
I actually thought about it, and I was like, since the Paradox Cave entrances were so bad, I need to check if I can get back easily.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that makes sense. And Andy obviously checked that later. He had a nice little eye roll when he walked in and was like, oh, come on.
That was my last entrance that wasn't boots or mitt locked. And I was like, if this is Meyer, like, I'm feeling super good about this seed. And I walked in and it's freaking Paradox lower. And I'm just like, come on, man.
Yeah, that was a good reaction to see.
I was like, overall, this seed, though, felt like super even for most of the way. Like, you guys were basically in lockstep near the end of it, up until Lin decided, I'm going to check entrances, and Andy said, I'm going to climb GT. I think Lin was out of Ice Palace a little earlier, but went to check a couple of things first. But other than that, you guys basically were hand-in-hand for the last... There was about a 20-minute period where we didn't get any new checks because you were just redoing what the other person had already done.
Yeah, it was like a little follow the leader sort of thing, with Linlinlin going in first and Andy following about 30 seconds after and doing the exact same thing.
Can we talk about that Master Sword in TR?
You mean the Tempered Sword in TR?
My Master Sword. The only reason I reverse climbed TR because I wanted a sword for Trinex. Because I was on Fire Sword. And then the last check I do is the Master Sword. And I'm like, okay, fine.
I'll say that ended up being Andy's Tempered Sword right before he did Trinex too.
Yeah, it was super
Because-
nice. I was like, great, this is fantastic.
I would say Andy was looking for the bow and Hera for a really long time, whereas Lynn had that dungeon done. I believe it was your first dungeon, right?
Yeah, it was my very first dungeon.
And that was
Yeah.
kind of it was the mirror versus that were playing off of each other over the course of the seed for most of it.
Yeah, I did North Dark World last pretty much, but like every other area had something good usually, so it was just like, you know, do this section and then do that section afterwards, and it was, I don't know, it was a relatively easy seed to route until the end.
Until the end.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think,
that was nightmare.
I'll say I think Desert Right was probably the thing that helped you into most in this seed, other than going for the GT climb, because that mirror ended up being huge early on. But this ended up being a super good, really competitive race until about the last 10 minutes, when it was like, as soon as Andy popped those boots, and I was pretty sure we were finding either the boots or the Ice Palace Big Key up there.
Like, the only reason I didn't go to ice as soon as I did was because the chance of the boots being in ice was super low because of the big key on Desert Torch.
Yeah, I did Swamp before Ice because of that. So I was like, there's one check in Ice Palace that can have the boots, and that's it. Most likely.
Yeah, I'll say the other thing I remember finding very interesting was how it seemed very early on, before either you had the hammer, that Swamp was going to be a very poor play because of where the flippers ended up compared to the number of GT keys that you had, since the flippers were locked by 4 of them, and I think Andy found them with 1 small key, I want to say.
Yeah.
And Lynn had just found the second small key, which had been hammer locked. And so that right away eliminated any flipper spot from the hammer contention. Of course, just happened to sit there in Thieves Town, but was looking like the item that was going to loom over the seed for most of the seed. But yeah, otherwise, I thought this was a super entertaining match. Had lots of crowd engagement, was really, really fun to watch in close. Both runners did a really nice job. I don't know if you guys have game 2 planned or not. I know you guys have a long time before you have to worry about that.
We haven't planned it yet, but I'm sure
Nope.
we'll plan it soon.
Yeah, I don't know when, but we'll plan it.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody is looking forward to it. Now that this tournament is kind of slow, it's progressing now towards the end, that people are getting a little antsy to see more of the matches coming at us fast and furious, but that's not how it goes towards the end of these tournaments.
No, people start dropping very, very slowly at the end, now that I think there are 10 people left in it overall. 4 in the loot winners and 6 in the losers bracket still.
There's only 4 people left in the losers bracket. Oh no, there's 6. You're right. I'm really bad at math. I'm literally looking at it right now and did math terribly in my head.
I'll say there's 2
Yeah,
round 6 series that haven't finished.
Yeah, there's 10 people left.
I'll say I
yeah,
really
it was
like
it was
watching
a fun team.
high-level races and Crosskeys, because I think you get a lot of similar but different but similar routing, which I think we had, where we had very, very distinct strengths for each runner in terms of what items they had and how they could leverage it. And then by the end they converged pretty nicely and pretty closely. I would say, Nori, I don't know if there's... I'll say you just posted the schedule. Is there anything that we want to highlight or...
Well, we have a Minish Cap randomizer tournament match coming up later today, 8 p.m. Eastern. They actually managed to reset the bracket of the finals match. So it's round 2, game 1. So it's at 8 p.m. Eastern. We have our Zelda 2 randomizer weekly at 9 p.m. Eastern. Not sure what else. The next Crosskeys matches coming up that are so far on the schedule are for Thursday, 1 at 3 p.m. Schultzer versus Hitchion. That's a loser. I believe it's losers bracket round 6, game 1, and Violet Pumpkin versus T Stew, and I believe that's winners bracket round 5, game 1.
Yeah, that's this
at
same
8
round
p.m.
here.
And I guess that's it. So GG's to both Andy and Linlinlin. It was a great race. And also thank you, Glybrol and Alzin, for doing commentary, and Sammy Mimas and Saber UX for tracking for us today. And I guess we'll just wrap things up. So again, thanks everyone for joining us, and we hope to see you again soon. Bye.
Bye.